Have you ever had that moment, you're in a place you know really well, maybe your own street, or you hear a conversation you've heard a million times, and then boom, something just clicks.
Yeah.
Suddenly you see the tension behind that friendly smile, maybe,
Yeah.
or you pick up on the unspoken thing in just a casual comment.
Absolutely, that moment of deeper seeing.
Exactly. It's like what you thought you knew just expands, and you realize there's so much going on, like under the surface, if we just, take the time to really look.
Hmm.
Okay, let's unpack this because today we are diving deep into a world where seeing isn't just believing, it's about profound understanding. And it's also actually an incredible way to get a better handle on the English language.
That's spot on. Our main theme today is exactly that perception, those hidden truths, the everyday back and forth within a community. It gives us this incredibly rich landscape. And it's not just about, understanding people, human nature. It's also about getting those subtle points,
Yeah.
the nuances of English language and culture. We're exploring a really unique source today.
Okay.
It's a narrative from a character who, well, she observes her community, the famous Wisteria Lane, but from a perspective afterlife.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, so this unique viewpoint lets her see what the living, well, what they often miss.
And our mission for this deep dive, it's pretty ambitious, right? We're not just trying to pull out fascinating bits about these characters' lives, their secrets, their struggles.
Yeah, well, there's more.
We're also going to really dig into the language. Practical, useful English vocabulary, phrases, the cultural stuff that's woven into how they talk and act.
Think of it as your shortcut, really. A way to get well informed about both the story and, crucially, the essential language packed inside it.
So we'll follow Mary Alice's observations, listen in on her friends' conversations, these moments of like sudden shock or realization. And we'll keep pausing, highlighting those key language takeaways that should really deepen your understanding and, hopefully, your command of English. Okay, so let's start with this really unusual premise. Our narrator, Mary Alice, she kicks things off by saying, "An odd thing happens when we die. Our senses vanish, but our sight expands." That's quite an opening.
It really is. It's poignant, a little unsettling maybe, but it perfectly sets the stage for everything that follows.
Yeah, and she talks about seeing the world she left behind with this like perfect clarity, and she contrasts it so sharply with the living, saying they could also be seen if they'd only take the time to look. It really makes you think, doesn't it, about what we overlook every day. What's hiding right there in plain sight?
It absolutely does. That opening just throws you right into this world, seen through a new lens. And the language she uses is so important for understanding this shift.
How so?
Well, take when she says her senses vanish. She's talking about the physical things, right? Taste, touch, smell, sound, sight as we know it.
Uh-huh.
But vanish. It's not just disappear, it feels more sudden, complete, like poof, gone into thin air. It sets up this kind of supernatural feeling right away.
Okay, yeah, vanish feels more magical, almost.
Exactly. And then she says her sight expands. How do you read that? What's the deeper thing happening there?
Well, it doesn't sound like literal bigger eyes.
No, exactly. It's not physical enlargement. It suggests a huge increase in understanding, a broader perspective, like she can suddenly see all the connections, the underlying truths that were totally hidden before.
Ah, so it's like insight.
Precisely. And this ties straight into that cultural idea of hindsight, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's always easier to get the full picture after something's happened.
Right. Hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah. Mary Alice's view is like the ultimate hindsight. It lets her, and us through her, see everything that was missed. It's such a powerful setup for a story that's all about peeling back the layers of, well, seemingly perfect suburban life.
And she uses this new sight immediately, talking about her friend Gabrielle. There's this real regret there. I should have seen how unhappy she was, but I didn't. I only saw her clothes from Paris, her platinum jewelry, and her brand new diamond watch.
Such a common feeling, that regret.
Totally. And she realizes Gabrielle was a drowning woman desperately in search of a life raft.
Wow. Let's talk about that phrase, I should seen. What does that tell us about expressing regret in English?
Oh, it's incredibly common and really poignant, like you said. It captures that universal human thing of looking back and wishing you'd noticed or done something different. I should have seen is just the contraction for I should have seen. And that structure, should have, plus the past participle like seen, done, called. It's the standard way we express regret about the past. So something that was a good idea or the right thing,
Yeah.
but it didn't happen.
Exactly. It carries that weight of a missed opportunity,
Yeah.
or maybe recognizing a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I should have studied harder, or you should have told me. There's kind of emotional weight to it.
Got it. And that metaphor, a drowning woman desperately in search of a life raft. It's so vivid. What kind of cultural insight can we pull from that, especially about appearances?
It's incredibly powerful, isn't it? English uses metaphors like this all the time to get complex emotions and situations across quickly.
Right, it paints a picture immediately.
Totally. A drowning woman here, she's not literally in the water. It describes someone completely overwhelmed by problems, huge emotional distress, struggling so much they feel like they're, well, metaphorically sinking.
Okay.
And the life raft, normally a little inflatable boat for survival, right?
Yeah.
Metaphorically, it's anything that offers help, salvation, a desperately needed solution when things are really dire.
So Gabrielle, despite all the fancy clothes and jewelry, was actually in deep trouble emotionally, just looking for anything to hold on to.
Precisely. And that phrasing, it's a powerful critique, isn't it, of how we as a culture, maybe especially in affluent settings or media, tend to focus on the shiny surface, the wealth, the possessions.
Yeah, the Paris clothes, the diamond watch.
Right. And it shows how easily that stuff can mask deep struggles, real unhappiness. It forces you, the listener, to ask, what are we missing when we only look at the surface? It's a strong reminder that what people present isn't always the whole story, not by a long shot.
Speaking of hidden truths, things being missed, the story throws us right into the middle of a Gabrielle's drama pretty fast.
Oh, yeah, no messing around.
We see her frantic affair with the young gardener, John, and then bam, her husband Carlos comes home early, unexpectedly. Chaos ensues.
Total panic mode.
Yeah, John hiding in the bushes, Gabrielle trying to cover, Carlos just standing there, totally clueless, asking about a workout and seeing John's truck. And then that line, delivered with such perfect irony, what Carlos couldn't see couldn't hurt her.
That scene is brilliant at showing urgency and panic just through dialogue. Short, sharp bursts of language. It's a great thing to notice if you want to understand natural spoken English in tense situations.
Like the exclamations.
Exactly. Listen. Damn it. Come on.
Whoa.
These aren't just words, they're gut reactions. Damn it. Frustration, annoyance, come on, impatience, hurry up. Whoa, surprise. Like, stop.
Okay.
Then the imperatives, the commands. Let's go. Hurry. Direct. Desperate instructions to move fast, and even shorter. Get out the window. What? Go.
Yet really clipped.
Stripped right down.
Yeah.
It perfectly mirrors Gabrielle's panic, that extreme fear. Understanding how these short phrases build tension and convey raw emotion, it's less about the dictionary definition and more about the pace and the force.
Right, the feeling behind it. And that line, what Carlos couldn't see couldn't hurt her. It's such a common saying, but here it feels different, both literal and figurative.
Oh, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah, his ignorance meant he wasn't feeling the pain of betrayal right then, so his not knowing was like a temporary shield.
Mm-hmm.
But figuratively, it points to this really fragile piece built entirely on ignorance, on not knowing. It hints at that idea. Ignorance is bliss. Maybe offering a short break from painful truths.
But the irony.
Oh, the irony is huge. Because we know, as the audience, secrets like that rarely stay hidden forever. So it couldn't hurt her in that moment, but boy, does it set the stage for future pain. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How often do we rely on the unsaid, the unseen, to keep things calm? And how long can that really last?
And buried secrets are exactly what come up next, right? The whole peaceful facade of Wisteria Lane gets shattered, first by Mary Alice's suicide, and then her friends finding this suspicious note. They all gather to discuss its implications, trying to decide, should we give this to Paul, her husband? They worry he'll freak out.
Yeah, the delivery method suggestion is darkly funny.
Right. Over coffee and pastry, just casually mention, we have proof your wife killed herself over a dork secret. Or maybe it's just a sick joke.
This whole section is just packed with phrases for talking about dilemmas, suspicion, breaking social rules. Let's dig into peaceful facade had recently been shattered.
Okay, facade.
Right. A facade is basically an outward appearance, often a deceptive one, hiding something less pleasant, like a fancy front on a shabby building. So Wisteria Lane looked perfect, idyllic, but it was just a front.
It's shattered.
Shattered means broken into bits, but here, metaphorically, it means that piece, that illusion, was completely destroyed, ruined, revealed the ugliness underneath. It's a really useful phrase for when a false sense of calm just explodes.
Okay, and they need to discuss its implications.
Yeah, implications are the possible results or effects, often things that aren't stated directly but are suggested. They're trying to figure out, Not just what the note says, but what it means for Paul, for Mary Alice, for them.
Because fear he'll freak out.
Freak out. Super common informal phrase. Means to get extremely angry, upset, anxious, excited, often losing emotional control. Like my parents would freak out if they knew.
Yeah.
It captures that sudden, intense outburst.
Gotcha. And then the idea of it being a sick joke or maybe in very poor taste. What do those convey?
Well, a sick joke is one that's cruel, offensive, maybe gruesome, making light of something serious or taboo.
Right.
And something in very poor taste is similar, offensive, inappropriate, lacking sensitivity, or just good judgment. So they're wrestling with this awful possibility that someone's playing a really cruel, messed up prank, given the situation. It shows how language isn't just information, it's also about expressing moral judgment, disgust.
And I also mentioned the age-old question.
Yeah, that's a classic idiom. It means a question or a problem that people have debated for a really long time, often without a clear answer. It stresses how enduring some human dilemmas are, especially around truth and consequences.
Like whether to tell Paul or keep him in the dark.
Exactly. In the dark, another great idiom. Means uninformed, not knowing something crucial, usually a secret. They're debating whether ignorance is better for him in this case.
So culturally, this whole thing taps into what? Secrets in communities.
Absolutely. The whole idea of secrets within families, within neighborhoods, there's this constant tension, isn't there, between wanting to know the truth, that human need for facts, for closure, and the potential damage, the fallout from digging them up.
Yeah.
It's a staple in stories, but it reflects a very real dilemma. When does knowing the truth actually help, and when does it just cause more pain?
Okay, so from those community secrets, let's zoom in on the really private struggles inside relationships. Starting with Bree and Rex, their marriage seems incredibly strained.
Oh, understatement of the year, maybe.
Right. Bree has this super controlled conversation with Rex, reminding him of his vows. I promise to love you for the rest of my life. And she's insisting on a marriage counselor, not divorce.
While he clearly wants out.
Yeah, he's reluctant. And Bree has this almost unnerving robotic pleasantness about her. Later, their counselor, Dr. Goldfein, points out that Bree doesn't like to talk about her feelings. To be honest, it's hard to know if she has any.
Oof. That's quite the observation.
It is. What does this scene tell us about how English describes these different communication styles within relationships?
Well, it's a gold mine for relationship vocabulary. Bree's frustration peaks when she uses that exclamation, "For God's sake," with Rex.
Ah, yes, a classic.
It's a really common, informal way to show you're exasperated, frustrated, or just adding emphasis. You use it when you're at your wit's end, like, for God's sakes, pay attention.
Okay. And her solution is a marriage counselor.
Right, that specific term for a professional who helps couples work through their issues, offers guidance. It's a particular type of therapist.
And this leads to that contrast Dr. Goldfein sees. Bree is mostly engaging in small talk.
Yeah, small talk. That polite, surface-level chat about unimportant stuff, weather, how are you, fine. Usually used to fill silence or build rapport, but Bree seems to use it defensively to avoid the real issues.
Whereas Rex is vocal about his issues.
Exactly. To be vocal means you express your opinions, your feelings, freely, strongly. No holding back. He's direct, maybe even blunt, about what's wrong.
And the doctor saying Bree's feelings are so far below the surface. That really paints a picture.
Doesn't it? It's a great metaphor for feelings that are just deeply hidden, suppressed, hard to get to. You'd have to dig. He even wonders if she uses all her perfect homemaking, the homemade potpourri, to disengage emotionally.
Disengage emotionally.
Basically, to withdraw, detach from feelings, become emotionally distant or unresponsive. It suggests it's maybe a coping strategy, focus on the outside stuff to avoid dealing with the inside stuff. And this whole dynamic, the contrast between the perfect outward appearance, Bree's meticulous control, and the internal reality, that's a huge theme in English-speaking culture, media, books. It constantly reminds us that things are rarely just what they seem, especially in those carefully presented relationships. Look beyond the polite chat, beyond the perfect house. What's really going on?
Okay, now let's switch to Gabrielle and Carlos. A very different dynamic, but still full of dissatisfaction.
Absolutely. Different flavor of unhappiness.
Gabrielle complains Carlos is trying to buy his way out of this one, meaning their problems. She says, "It's not exciting anymore, Carlos," and she wants him to take my breath away.
And his response, "A shiny new car."
Right. which he says cost me an arm and a leg. Ah, some really classic idioms in there. What do they tell us about how English speakers might talk about money and emotion in relationships?
They're definitely classics. Buy your way out of this one. Great idiom. Means using money or gifts or favors to escape trouble or consequences or avoid dealing with something difficult.
So she's saying he's using money to avoid the real emotional work.
Precisely. And when she says she's not in the mood, that's just a super common, direct way to say you don't feel like doing something specific. Clear lack of desire.
And Carlos's reply, for future reference, conversation ain't one of them.
Huh. Yeah, for future reference means remember this for next time, or just so you know. And 8, very informal, non-standard contraction for is not or are not. You wouldn't use it in formal writing, but it pops up in speech for emphasis or casual, sometimes cynical tone. Fits Carlos's character here, very blunt.
Okay. And take my breath away.
Another fantastic idiom. Means to astonish, impress, or excite someone so much they kind of gasp, feel overwhelmed by awe or strong emotion. It's about profound emotional impact.
Not just literally running out of air.
No.
Yeah.
And finally, the car cost me an arm and a leg. Very common idiom, meaning it was extremely expensive, cost a lot, implies a big financial sacrifice.
So culturally, this whole exchange shows the tricky role of gifts.
I think so. It highlights those common but often frustrating expectations around gifts in relationships. Yes, they can be used to apologize, show love, smooth things over, but this scene perfectly shows how material things often just fail to meet deeper emotional needs or fix fundamental issues. It's that disconnect, grand gesture versus profound emotional need. The expensive car doesn't take her breath away emotionally.
Okay, let's turn to Susan. A budding romance with Mike. The narrator describes her as alone and parched, seeing Mike as the tall drink of water she needed to quench her thirst.
Quite the image.
It really is. Captures that desperation and desire. We hear her thinking, should he ask me out? Should I ask him? Then Mike does invite her for dinner, calls it a tradition for new neighbors, a home-cooked meal.
Ah, the classic neighborly gesture.
Except Susan is famously a terrible cook, so she improvises, hilariously, saying, I ordered takeout, and explaining it's sort of a new tradition. I'm working at the Kinks.
Oh, that's brilliant, and packed with great metaphors and idioms about desire and awkward romance.
Right, alone and parched.
Yeah, parched literally means very thirsty, but metaphorically. It's emotional dryness, loneliness, a strong longing for connection. She's emotionally dehydrated.
So Mike is the Kuhl, the tall drink of water.
Exactly. Tall drink of water, informal, often funny idiom for an attractive person who satisfies that need or craving. He's what she feels she needs to fill the void. And her goal is to quench her thirst. Satisfy that need or desire, in this case, for companionship, romance. It's a great example of using concrete, physical images for abstract emotional states. Very common in English.
And her line about working out the kinks in her new tradition.
Yeah, working out the kinks. Very common, relatable idiom. It means fixing the small problems or difficulties in a bland system or situation.
Like smoothing out the rough edges.
Exactly. Things are new, they have kinks and imperfections that need sorting out. So her new tradition of inviting people for home cooking but actually getting takeout, it's still in its early, awkward, clearly imperfect phase.
It's funny but also kind of sweet.
It is. And it captures that common social ritual in many English-speaking places, inviting new neighbors for a home-cooked meal. The humor comes from Susan's attempt to keep up appearances, that facade of domesticity, despite her lack of skill. It reflects that relatable tension between social expectations and our own messy reality.
Okay, so moving from those more intimate relationship dynamics, let's dive into the more public but just as complicated social battles. We've got Edie Britt. Her house just burned down. She's facing this harsh reality. She's homeless or ungracious, and the narrator bluntly says, you really can't afford to be both.
Ouch! That's harsh.
It is. And Susan has this thought, Edie may be trash, but she's still a human being. Then there's that odd detail, the mysterious measuring cup found in the ruins that doesn't belong to Edie.
This part really brings out some pointed language, doesn't it? Especially about how people judge someone who's vulnerable. What does the narrator mean? Can't afford to be both. It's stark, almost brutal social commentary wrapped in a pragmatic observation. When Edie dismisses the donated clothes as other people's old crap, being that informal dismissive word for junk, it shows her lack of gratitude.
Right.
So the line, you can be homeless or ungracious, you really can't afford to be both, implies that if you need help, if you're vulnerable, society kind of expects you to be grateful, or at least polite. If you're both needy and rude or ungrateful, You risk pushing away the people who might help you.
So it's about social expectations when receiving charity.
Exactly. There's an expectation of humility. It's a tough reality of social dynamics. They also talk about trying to salvage things from her house.
Salvage.
Yeah, to salvage means to rescue or save something valuable from a disaster, a fire, a shipwreck, recovering what's left. And the measuring cup looks good as new. Common phrase for something restored to great condition, like it was never damaged.
Okay. And Bree twists that idiom later about Edie being a beggar.
Right. Bree says, Edie's a beggar now, which means she can't be a chooser. The original idiom is beggars can't be choosers, meaning if you're relying on others, you take what you're given, you can't be picky. Bree applies it directly to Edie's situation, emphasizing her lowered social status.
And then they worry about giving her clothes that might add salt to the wound.
Another great idiom, add salt to the wound, means making a bad situation even worse, intensifying someone's pain or suffering, often by being insensitive or cruel. It highlights that tension between wanting to help, charity, and respecting someone's feelings, dignity, and how language can show sympathy, but also sometimes really blunt judgment.
The judgment and competition definitely heat up with Susan and Edie's dinner rivalry for Mike. Classic round one.
Oh, yeah.
Edie apparently wormed her way in to Mike's dinner. Susan plans to get there early before the Barracuda gets there.
Barracuda. Love that description.
Me too. And there's even that snarky comment about Edie's anatomy arriving early. Her breasts will arrive at 5:30. The dinner itself is just escalating rivalry. Edie is ingratiating herself, using Mike's dog, Bongo. Susan's fuming, feels powerless to stop it, and later mad she didn't think of the dog trick first. It's like unspoken social warfare.
It totally is. And the language is perfect for understanding social competition. To worm one's way in, great informal idiom. Means slowly, slyly gaining entrance or advantage, often by being manipulative. It implies sneakiness.
And Barracuda.
That's a brilliant metaphor for someone predatory, aggressive, ruthless in competition. Tells you instantly how Susan sees Edie dangerous. Susan then gets that awful feeling in the pit of her stomach. Very common phrase for intense dread, anxiety, unease. Like something bad is about to happen. A physical feeling of emotional discomfort, and she feels like she's watching an accident in slow motion. Vivid metaphor for seeing something bad unfold gradually, unable to stop it. That's exactly her feeling about Edie moving in on Mike.
And the contrasting idioms they use, three's a crowd versus the more the merrier, perfectly captures their opposite goals.
It's masterful. Three's a crowd implies a third person is unwelcome, spoiling intimacy, especially romantic. That's Susan's view.
Wants it to be just her and Mike.
Right. But Edie throws out the more the merrier, meaning more people make it more fun. She's saying she doesn't mind being the third wheel, maybe even enjoys disrupting things. Pure social strategy.
And Edie tries to ingratiate herself.
Yeah, to ingratiate oneself means trying to get someone to like you by flattering them or pleasing them, often in a calculated, maybe insincere way. Her move with Bongo is seen as a blatant maneuver.
Blatant meaning.
Obvious, unashamed, not subtle at all. An aggressive tactic. And when Susan thinks she and Bongo just got off on the wrong foot, that's an idiom for starting a relationship or interaction badly, usually with a misunderstanding. This whole dinner scene just lays bare the unspoken rules, the fierce competition in social dynamics, especially dating in Western culture. How subtle actions, seemingly innocent words, strategic moves all convey status, intent, and who wins the unspoken battle.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit to Lynette and her parenting struggles. This leads her to a really unconventional, maybe desperate approach.
Yeah, things get pretty intense.
She's totally frustrated with her boys, calls them willful. She says, I scream, I threaten, I reason, I beg. Nothing works. Then, in desperation, she actually leaves them by the side of the road to scare them.
Whoa, that's a choice.
It is. Apparently, it's a tactic her own mother, who she calls a smart lady, used. Although now she says her mother's mind is just turned to mush. This whole thing leads to a public confrontation with another woman who accuses her of having anger management issues and abandoning your children.
It's chaotic, but it brings up so much relatable, culturally charged stuff about parenting. How does the English used here describe these intense feelings and judgments? Great question. First, willful to describe the boys. That means stubbornly determined to do what they want, consequences be damned, strong-willed, disobedient.
Got it.
Lynette feels they get perverse joy out of testing me. Perverse here means kind of twisted, contrary to what's expected or normal. Like they find a strange pleasure in provoking her, pushing boundaries.
Okay. And her reaction, you're kidding.
Very common expression of disbelief or surprise. Like, I can't believe you just said that. an immediate informal reaction.
Hmm.
And her description of her mother's mind having turned to mush, classic idiom.
Meaning confused, forgetful.
Yeah, exactly. Something becoming soft, unclear, disorganized, often used figuratively for the mind, especially with age or illness.
Okay. And the stranger's accusations, anger management issues, and abandoning your children.
Right? Anger management issues is a very modern, common phrase for having trouble controlling your temper. It often implies needing professional help. It's a quick judgmental label thrown out in public.
And abandoning.
That one carries huge weight. Very strong legal and social meanings in English-speaking cultures. It implies leaving kids without care or support, which is seen incredibly negatively, often leading to serious consequences like child services getting involved, even legal charges.
So this whole scene really taps into changing views on discipline.
I think so.
Yeah.
Lynette's extreme method definitely has shock value compared to her usual reasoning or begging. It also highlights that immediate, harsh judgment you can get from strangers in public, how quickly people form and voice strong opinions on parenting, often without knowing the full story. It really begs the question, what is good parenting and who gets to judge?
From that very practical struggle, the narrative takes this unexpected turn into critiquing Freud.
Yeah, quite the detour.
A character calls Freud a miserable human being for basically peddling a theory that the problems of most adults can be traced back to something awful their mother has done.
Strong words.
Very. The argument is Freud ignored his own mother's intense work, backbreaking work from sunup to sundown, and was ungrateful. And then the follow-up. Many of Freud's theories have been discredited.
It's a fantastic snapshot of informal argumentation in English, how people dismiss or critique complex ideas in everyday chat. Calling someone a miserable human being, that's a powerful, negative judgment on their character. Very emotional.
And peddling a theory?
Peddling means promoting or selling an idea, but it often sounds negative, like the idea isn't really valuable or legitimate. Maybe the person's just trying to push it for their own gain. Here, it implies Freud was selling a questionable, maybe unfair idea, like a street vendor selling cheap goods.
Okay. And the description of his mother's work, backbreaking and sunup to sundown.
Both are great idioms. Backbreaking work means extremely hard, tiring physical labor, evokes real strain. And from sunup to sundown means working all day long, continuously, tirelessly. So she worked incredibly hard.
And the idea is she felt betrayed.
Betrayed means feeling let down, deceived, like someone was disloyal to your trust or a cause. And the skeptical response, I doubt it. Very common way to say, I don't believe that, or that seems unlikely. A quick dismissal.
Right. Finally, his theory is being discredited.
To discredit something or someone means to harm their reputation, or to show that an idea isn't true or reliable. So his ideas have been proven false or untrustworthy over time.
So this whole exchange gives us a peek into how psychology is viewed in popular culture.
Yeah, I think so. How complex theories get simplified, debated, even totally dismissed in everyday talk. And it definitely taps into that common cultural tendency, fairly or unfairly, to blame or credit mothers for all sorts of adult issues, often without much real evidence. It's a great example of how big ideas get filtered and argued about in the public sphere. Okay, let's circle back to Gabrielle and John's affair. There's this really pivotal moment of realization for Gabrielle that beautifully contrasts, I think, superficial gestures with genuine feeling.
Ah, the rose scene.
Exactly. John gives her a single, perfect rose, saying, just like you. And the narrator tells us, the truth hit her like a thunderbolt. For John, this was no longer a meaningless little affair. Gabrielle could now clearly see he was falling in love with her.
That phrase, hit her like a thunderbolt, it's so dramatic. What does that tell us about sudden realizations in English?
Hit like a thunderbolt. Fantastic idiom. It means a sudden, shocking, overwhelming realization or impact, like being struck by lightning. It's not gradual, it's instant, often emotional understanding of something surprising or hidden.
So she just knew in that instant.
Exactly. She suddenly grasped the real depth of John's feelings, and she realized this wasn't just a meaningless little affair anymore.
Meaningless little affair, meaning just casual.
Yeah, describing a relationship that's unimportant, casual, probably short-lived, without deep emotional connection or serious consequences, meant to be fleeting. But for John, clearly it had become much more. He was falling in love.
The standard phrase.
The standard phrase for developing those deeper romantic feelings, moving beyond just attraction.
And the contrast here, culturally, the rose versus the car.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Remember, Carlos just bought her that super expensive luxury car. A huge, grand gesture. But Kind of impersonal, right? A materialistic fix.
Trying to buy his way out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But John's gift, a single perfect rose, given with what seems like raw, genuine emotion. And the narrator's comment, it's the rare man who understands the value of a single perfect rose that suggests true love, real understanding, is often shown in these nuanced, heartfelt gestures, not just big, expensive ones.
Emotional value over material cost.
Precisely. A small, perfect token meaning more than something costly if it's truly from the heart. A powerful lesson in emotional literacy, maybe.
And speaking of hidden depths and real emotion, Susan has her own big realization about Mike Delfino.
Ah, yes, the bongo incident.
Right, his dog, Bongo, eats Susan's earring. They end up at the vet, and Mike reveals Bongo was actually his late wife's dog. Looking after him was one of the last promises he made to her.
Such a touching backstory.
It is, and Susan realizes Mike Delfino was still in love with his late wife. She figures neither she nor Edie would be laying claim to his heart anytime soon, so she decides she could settle for just being his friend. It feels like a really mature, nuanced moment of acceptance.
It really is beautiful and emotionally complex for Susan. That phrase, laying claim to, it means stating you have a right to something or someone, trying to acquire them, often with a sense of entitlement.
So she realized his heart wasn't available for claiming.
Exactly. It was still occupied by his late wife. And Mike's little comment, I know that sounds stupid when talking about the promise, that's such common self-deprecation. Saying something sounds foolish to yourself, maybe to head off judgment, even when it's totally understandable, like this deep emotional bond.
Right. And Susan's decision to settle for friendship.
Yeah, to settle for something means accepting an option that isn't your first choice, or maybe isn't ideal, but it's satisfactory, or it's the best you can get in the circumstances. She accepts the reality of friendship over the romance she wanted.
So culturally, this highlights the pet connection, grief.
Definitely the powerful bond with pets, especially when linked to someone deceased. In English-speaking cultures, pets are often seen as family, and that connection can become incredibly potent after a loss. It also shows how grief works in unexpected ways, how it influences new relationships, shapes what's possible. Susan's acceptance is mature. She recognizes some hearts just aren't available, even for a tall drink of water, because they're still tied to the past. A very nuanced look at complex emotions in everyday life.
And finally, we end with the narrator's reflections, bringing us right back to her unique view. Mary Alice says, as I look back at the world I left behind, it's all so clear to me. The beauty that waits to be unveiled, the mysteries that long to be uncovered.
Mm-hmm.
But people so rarely stop to take a look. They just keep moving. It's a shame, really. There's so much to see. It feels profound and applicable way beyond Wisteria Lane.
It really does. And the language itself is so evocative, isn't it? Feels like a direct message to us, the listeners.
Totally. Unveiled and uncovered.
Yeah, unveiled, literally taking off a veil, metaphorically making something known, revealing it, especially if it was hidden. Uncovered is similar, revealing something hidden or secret. Both suggest there are wonders, truths all around us, just waiting for us to pay attention.
And it's a shame, really.
Very common phrase expressing regret, sadness, disappointment about something that could be better, a missed opportunity. And her final thought, there's so much to see. It's literal, of course, the visual world.
Yeah.
But metaphorically, it's about the richness of life, the hidden stories, the nuances of experience, the deeper truths available if we just look.
So it's like a meta commentary on this whole deep dive.
Exactly. It's Mary Alice's ultimate advice, isn't it? Encouraging you, our listener, to really engage with information, with people, with life itself, just like we've tried to do with this story from Wisteria Lane. Hashtag tag outro.
Wow. What an incredibly insightful journey that was. We really have delved into Wisteria Lane, seeing it through those unique eyes that perceive more than the living. We've talked about how crucial observation is, the need to look past the obvious surface, and just the incredibly rich, complex tapestry of human relationships. Often messy, often surprising, right?
Definitely messy.
From that raw panic of a cover-up to the quiet grief behind looking after a pet, we've really pulled out so many layers. And importantly, along the way, we've hit on this huge range of English expressions, vivid idioms, powerful metaphors, those subtle phrases that capture tricky emotions and cultural nuances. So what does this all mean for you listening right now?
Well, it means that paying close attention, really paying attention to these everyday stories, whether it's in shows like this, books, the conversations happening around you, even the news, when you combine that attention with a keen eye for the language being used, it can make you incredibly well informed.
Not just knowing facts, but understanding more deeply.
Exactly. It equips you with deeper understanding and it seriously enhances your own communication skills in English. We've thrown a lot of practical vocabulary and phrases at you today. I really encourage you to listen for them out in the world. Maybe try using them in your own conversations, your writing, which, raises an important question for you to think about.
Okay.
What unveiled or uncovered truths might be waiting for you if you just take that time to look a little deeper into your own life, your surroundings, or maybe even into the nuances of the language you use every single day?
That's a perfect challenge to end on. Keep practicing those observation skills in life and definitely in your language learning journey. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time.